This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Monday, September 2nd, 2024, Labor Day. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The White House is expressing sorrow over the 6 hostage deaths in Gaza.
Stay strong. Survive.
I'm Jackie Quinn.
A quiet weekend on the campaign trail. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
7 people were killed, including a 6-year-old boy in Mississippi, after a bus overturned. I'm Julie Walker.
The execution-style killing of a Dallas police officer.
Officer Burks was executed.
I'm Clayton Neville.
If you're driving in an electric car during the Labor Day holiday weekend, there aren't as many of you out there as you may think. I'm Peter Chaknow.
Lawyers for the man charged in the deaths of 4 Idaho students wants the trial moved. I'm Shirley Adler.
And a first-in-the-nation drug law allowed to lapse. We'll tell you why. All ahead on America in the Morning. Condemnation after 6 Israeli hostages, including an Israeli American held in Gaza, were found dead after Hamas terrorists executed them before Israel's military could arrive. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports the White House is expressing its sadness over the deaths of Israeli hostages, while Senator Tim Kaine, speaking on Fox News Sunday, and Senator Tom Cotton on NBC's Meet the Press, discussed what America needs to do to bring stability to the Middle East.
It's terribly sad news that Hamas executed these 6 hostages in cold blood, apparently shot them in the head shortly before they might have been rescued by Israeli defense forces. If we had simply backed Israel to the hilt from October 7th, this war would probably be over. We probably would have found many more hostages alive, and there would have been fewer civilian casualties.
We've certainly wondered along the way whether Hamas wants a deal or not. They don't care about the suffering of the Palestinian people. So my sense is this is very, very tough. We're getting closer. You know, again, let's step back and reflect on the tragedy of the loss of these 6 and see if we can really push through to a solution.
Both President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have issued statements surrounding the hostage deaths. The White House is expressing sorrow over the 6 hostage deaths in Gaza, including that of 23-year-old Hirsch Goldberg Poland, whose parents spoke at the Democratic National Convention last month.
Hirsch, if you can hear us, we love you. Stay strong. Survive.
The 23-year-old was seized by militants at a music festival during the October 7th massacre by Hamas. His arm blown off, throwing back a grenade militants had tossed into a shelter. Now a family spokesman says,
I thank you all for your love and support and ask for privacy.
Officials say Goldberg Poland and 2 others were to have been released in the latest ceasefire deal that stalled. President Biden vowed the White House will work around the clock for a deal to secure the release of the remaining hostages.
Needing our only son and all of the cherished hostages home is not a political issue. It is a humanitarian issue.
I'm Jackie Quinn.
Both the Trump and Harris camps stepped away from campaigning over the weekend, but that didn't stop the candidates from sounding off on a variety of issues. Harris set to be back on the trail later today. John Stolnis has more from Washington.
Controversy continues to swirl around former President Donald Trump's photo op with Gold Star families at Arlington National Cemetery last week. In a statement Saturday, Harris said Trump, quote, disrespected sacred ground, all for the sake of a political stunt. At a rally in Johnstown, Pennsylvania Friday, Trump denied the accusations.
Joe Biden killed those young people because he was incompetent. And then they tell me that I use their graves for public relations services. I wasn't doing it I don't need publicity. I get a lot of publicity.
At that same rally, a man was arrested and faces misdemeanor charges after storming into the press area before being tackled and tased by security. Trump at the rally speaking as it happened.
That's beautiful. That's all right. That's okay. No, he's on our side. We get a little itchy, David, don't we? No, he's on our side.
It's not clear why the as-yet unidentified man tried to access the media area. Trump also spending Friday in the nation's capital at a fireside chat at the Moms for Liberty Summit. As Vice President Kamala Harris spent the weekend off the trail, running mate Minnesota Governor Tim Walz spent Sunday enjoying an ice cream and speaking with attendees at his home state's annual state fair.
Agriculture is still king in Minnesota. You see that many of these folks are going to participate in agribusiness over their lifetimes that we need here in Minnesota. So great state fair. Glad to have you all out here.
Later today, Harris will be joined by President Biden for a rally in Pittsburgh. It'll be her 9th trip to the Keystone State this year, while Governor Walz will head to Milwaukee and the battleground state of Wisconsin. The Trump campaign has no public events on their schedule. John Stolnis, Washington.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. It's Sleep Number's biggest sale of the year. Save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com. Tragedy on a Mississippi highway. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back to America in the Morning. Beginning in the South, AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton has the national forecast.
Downpours do continue for this Labor Day holiday in parts of the South, in particular much of Texas, with a tropical rainstorm remaining the main weather maker over the area. This feature will deliver rounds of heavy rain over mainly central and western parts of Texas, plus locally higher rainfall rates with enhanced downpours from any thunderstorms that develop. The westward movement of the core of the storm should keep much of Louisiana out of the showers and storms after a wet Sunday in spots. And even Arkansas should be dry today behind a cold front sinking southward to shove some of the tropical rains closer to the Gulf Coast. However, much of the near coastal southeast can still have thunderstorms around today, especially this afternoon. That same cold front brings a much nicer day in its wake from the northeast through the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys as an enormous zone of high pressure centered over the Great Lakes builds south and eastward with a good deal of sunshine for many from Wisconsin to Kentucky to New England, along with low humidity. Highs today and tomorrow in the 60s and 70s, and nighttime lows in the 40s and 50s should be commonplace across this large area of the nation. In the nation's center, a comfortable day is in store for the Midwest and eastern parts of the plains, albeit slightly warmer than areas farther to the north and east, with a hotter day in store from western Nebraska through the western Dakotas. For the west, northern Montana and parts of Idaho also hold on to the heat, with thunder showers for some of the high ground of the Cascades and showers and storms around from central Idaho into northern parts of the Four Corners region. In Spokane, Washington, it won't be quite as hot as Sunday's near-record temperatures with some sun, the high 87. Charleston, South Carolina has clouds and sun in the future with a couple of heavy, gusty afternoon thunderstorms and a high of 89. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Tragedy on a Mississippi highway after a bus crash kills 7 people and injures more than 36 others. Correspondent Julie Walker has the latest.
We're going to be looking at probably 3 or 4 different factors specifically in this crash, and primarily those safety issues that we look at as we do on many other crashes are going to be motor carrier safety itself, a Mexican carrier operating in the United States, tire maintenance, and occupant protection.
The NTSB says the crash was caused by tire failure. Warren County Sheriff Martin Pace spoke with WLBT-TV.
It's terrible. Anytime you have anybody injured or killed, it's a horrible accident. But when you have multiple fatalities and multiple injuries, it just compounds the tragedy.
The coroner said the siblings were identified by their mother. Mississippi Highway Patrol says the bus was traveling west when it left the highway near Bovina in Warren County and flipped over. No other vehicles were involved. I'm Julie Walker.
The Dallas Police Department is mourning the loss of an officer investigators say was executed in his patrol car. Correspondent Clayton Neville fills us in.
Dallas police officer Darren Burks murdered in his DPD patrol car after he pulled into a parking lot in between calls.
I know that the word ambush has been thrown around in the last 24 hours or so. That's not what happened here. Officer Burks was executed.
Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia says the suspect approached Officer Burks
and talked with him briefly through the driver's side window as he recorded the encounter with a cell phone. The suspect then pulled out a handgun and executed Officer Burks as he sat in his vehicle.
The suspect is then said to have put a long gun on the roof of the patrol car and used that to shoot two other officers when they got to the scene. Both of them expected to be okay, but the suspect drove away and was shot and killed after a chase in a Dallas suburb. Dallas City Councilwoman Carolyn King Arnold says there are heavy hearts today.
Because it was something that appears to be, from what I'm hearing, premeditated. I mean, it was against the blue.
The killing comes more than 8 years after 5 officers were killed in downtown Dallas during an ambush in 2016. Over the weekend, this man stood outside a Dallas police station with a DPD and an American flag, urging residents to stop and show their support.
To where I'm doing the very same thing as what my family and I did back after the 7/7/16 incident.
I'm Clayton Neville.
When we return on America in the Morning, EVs. Not as popular as you might think after these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Stock markets are closed today, but CNBC's Peter Schacknow is in with a check of business as we continue this 3 or for some 4-day weekend.
There are plenty of people traveling this Labor Day weekend, both on the road and in the air. AAA estimates that overall travel is up 9% from a year ago, and the TSA expects to screen a record 17 million passengers at airports through the holiday period. But if you're on the road, you may not see as many electric cars as you think. Automotive research firm J.D. Power has cut its 2024 market share estimate for EVs to 9% from its prior 12%. Former Ford CEO Mark Fields says early adoption and government incentives drove initial growth for EV sales, but points to a number of issues still to be resolved.
There has to be more lower-priced models in the marketplace for consumers to afford. Secondly, as we talked about, the charging infrastructure has to be built out. It's in the process of that. But it not only has to be built out, it has to be in locations that consumers can see, just like gas stations.
In the meantime, consumers have shown an increasing preference for hybrid vehicles, and some have even returned to gas-powered cars. If you're among those traveling by air, you may have noticed that airfares have gotten cheaper. Brian Kelly, founder of the popular travel website The Points Guy, says market dynamics have pushed prices lower.
Demand is really strong. Consumers want to travel. But the big reason why prices are dropping is an increase in supply. Airlines have flooded the market with new planes, bigger planes, and increasing capacity on really popular routes. So planes are full, but because there's so much extra supply, prices are really low.
Kelly expects airfares to decline further. Right now, the average domestic fare is around $240, about 10% lower than a year ago.
Peter, the September effect is here in the stock market. I guess the historical chart data backs that up?
That's exactly right, and it's true both historically and recently. It's not that stocks never rise in September, but it is the worst on average throughout history. And we've not seen the Dow, S&P 500, or NASDAQ rise during September since 2019. But there is some hope. The Federal Reserve will meet on September 16th and 17th, and it's all but certain the central bank will cut interest rates by at least a quarter point. And following some encouraging recent inflation data, investors are now expecting rate cuts to continue into subsequent Fed meetings, which would give stocks a boost. Many market watchers have noted the expansion of market gains outside the so-called Magnificent Seven stocks, which had driven a large chunk of the market's advance earlier this year and last year. One key event to watch this week comes on Friday morning when the government releases the August employment report. You may recall that a weaker than expected July jobs report caused a market tailspin, which included a 3% one-day drop in the S&P 500.
A key number of the political campaigns will focus on the August employment report due out Friday. CNBC's Peter Schacknow. Drug decriminalization law expires when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. A judge is weighing a venue change after lawyers for the man charged in the deaths of 4 University of Idaho students wants the trial moved. Following the case, correspondent Shelley Adler.
Attorneys for the man charged in the 2022 stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students has asked a judge to move the trial to a larger city, citing the widespread media coverage of the case. Brian Kohberger's defense team says strong emotions in the close-knit community and constant news coverage will make it impossible to find an impartial jury in the university town. They want the trial, set for June of next year, to be moved to Boise or another large city. Kohberger, a former criminal justice student at Washington State University, faces 4 counts of murder. I'm Shelley Adler.
The state of Oregon's 2020 drug decriminalization law has been allowed to expire, ending the first-in-the-nation experiment that made possession of small amounts of hard drugs punishable by just a ticket and a maximum $100 fine. Purportedly, state auditors found the system was not equipped to get new addiction programs up and running, especially as the fentanyl crisis caused a spike in deadly overdoses. Possession of personal use quantities of illicit drugs will now become a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 6 months in prison. America in the Morning for Monday, September 2nd, 2024, Labor Day, is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour, the United States planning a take-it-or-leave-it offer to end the Gaza war.
Former President Trump courting moms for liberty. I'm Clayton Neville.
Robert F. Kennedy with no luck removing himself from a number of battleground state ballots. I'm Jeff McKay.
An attack on a group of Jewish students at the University of Pittsburgh leads to the arrest of 1 person. I'm Julie Walker.
3 dead after a small plane crash in Oregon. We'll have the details.
Boar's Head deli meat plant in Jarrett, Virginia, tied to a deadly food poisoning outbreak, repeatedly violated federal regulations. I'm Norman Hall.
The last weekend of summer slowed down at the box office. I'm Kevin Carr.
We're back after these messages. Welcome back. Here with America in the Morning and that all-important Labor Day weather forecast with how things are looking in your neck of the woods. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Delightful conditions arrive just in time for Labor Day from New England through the mid-Atlantic states as a cold front sweeping through the region brings in a more comfortable air mass, lots of sunshine, and even a refreshing breeze at times for many. Today and even for Tuesday, widespread highs in the 60s and 70s with lows mainly in the 40s and 50s can be expected from Maine to northern Virginia through the interior Northeast and as far to the west as the Great Lakes region. Very low humidity will continue to filter into these areas, bringing a more than welcome early burst of fall after what has been a wet couple of days in some spots, but showers and thunderstorms remain prevalent over the southeast ahead of the cold front. By contrast, wet weather persists across much of Texas as a tropical rainstorm continues to dump heavy rain and localized areas of especially intense downpours due to embedded thunderstorms across much of the Lone Star State. As the center of the storm pushes a bit to the west, much of Louisiana should get out of the worst of the precipitation today, but most areas south of the Red River stand a good risk of drenching rainfall through the day, with hot conditions for the central and northern plains, but a more comfortable feel for the Midwest. Speaking of heat, the core of the hot air that contributed to the latest heat wave in the Northwest shifts a bit to the east for this holiday, with scorching conditions most likely from northern Montana and Idaho into far eastern Washington. An enhanced area of showers and storms is expected from eastern Oregon through southern Idaho, with a thunderstorm around into northern Nevada and western Utah, with spotty thundershowers also possible in the Cascades of Washington and Oregon and through the Colorado Rockies. The weather across America, I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris will meet in the White House Situation Room today, along with the U.S. hostage deal negotiating team, for what the Washington Post describes as a take-it-or-leave-it offer for Israel and Hamas after the murder of 6 hostages, including American citizen Hirsch Goldberg Paulin. Correspondent Karen Shamas reports this comes after Israeli protesters mobbed the streets of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv during a massive workers' strike as people are demanding an end to the war and the immediate return of the 101 remaining Hamas-held hostages.
Thousands of Israelis have protested outside the office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem after Israel said it had recovered the bodies of 6 hostages in Gaza. Waving Israeli flags and holding banners reading "Now," protesters gathered in their thousands in Jerusalem. Their recovery of the hostages' bodies sparked calls for mass protests against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whom many Israelis blame for failing to bring them back alive through negotiation with Hamas. One protester who sat blindfolded outside of Netanyahu's office told the AP,
"Stop the fear and stop the dehumanization and save people's lives today by making a deal."
The protest comes as Israel's largest trade union, which represents some 800,000 workers, called a general strike the following day in response to the news of the dead hostages. I'm Karen Shamas.
Former President Donald Trump engaged in conversation about American culture wars during the annual Moms for Liberty Summit in Washington, D.C. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The group Moms for Liberty plans to spend more than $3 million in key battleground states ahead of the presidential election. Now, local chapters of the group typically support school board candidates, but Friday night's event made it quite clear that Moms for Liberty stands with Trump. The group pushes back against schools that support transgender youth in states that offer protections for gender-affirming care. During the conversation, the former president addressed critics who said recently that his visit to Arlington National Cemetery to recognize the 3-year anniversary of the deadly withdrawal from Afghanistan was just a political photo op.
President Trump spent time at Arlington National Cemetery taking pictures of things. It's just so disgusting. And I'll tell you, if you haven't noticed, I get a lot of publicity. I don't need that publicity. I don't need that publicity. It doesn't. I get a lot. I get too much. I'd like to have half the publicity. I want to hire a PR person to get me half the publicity, all right?
Trump touched on a number of topics during the forum, including presidential power.
Well, you can do everything. President has such power. It does. It has such power. For instance, you can close the border. You don't need a bill.
He also reacted to the situation of Venezuelan migrant gangs taking over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado.
I mean, they're taking over the city. They're taking over apartment complexes. And these are young, very tough people. These are tough. They make our criminals look nice. That's the only thing good about them.
He pointed directly to Venezuela.
Venezuela crime is down like 72%. Because they're bringing all of their criminals from Caracas and everywhere else. They're bringing them to the beautiful USA. Thank you very much, Venezuela. We appreciate it.
The former president's stop at the summit came as he tries to attract more women voters in his race against VP Kamala Harris. I'm Clayton Neville.
Pennsylvania authorities say a man will face charges after storming into the press area at a Trump rally. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports the former president described journalists as the enemy of the people moments before the man was wrestled to the ground by police.
Actually, in 2016 we did great, but 2020 we did much better generally. Since Kamala and the media don't want to talk about her radical record, we will.
As Trump watched the arrest happen, he said,
"Is there anywhere that's more fun to be than a Trump rally?"
The man who stormed into the press area was eventually subdued with a taser.
Now he's on our side. I mean, the problem is if he was on our side, we can have 35, 40,000 people trying to get in. And if one person stands up and says, "I don't like you, Trump," it becomes a headline. Major problems, right? No, but he is on our side. Thank you very much. That's nice.
The incident came moments after Trump had criticized major media outlets for what he said was unfavorable coverage, and after he had dismissed CNN as fawning for its recent interview with Democrat Kamala Harris.
Oh, look at all of the fake news. They got a lot of fake news back there. That's a lot of fake news, David.
The man's motives aren't immediately clear. Johnstown police say he'll be formally charged next week with misdemeanor offenses. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. finds himself in a conundrum to start the week. America in the Morning's Jeff McKay reports the one-time independent presidential candidate cannot remove himself from key state election ballots.
Kennedy, who suspended his independent bid for the White House and announced he's supporting Donald Trump, went to court in North Carolina to have his name removed from that state's ballot, but a judge said it's too late in the process, as over 1.7 million ballots have already been printed. Meanwhile, an appeals court in New York rejected Kennedy's request to get back on the ballot there, upholding a judge's decision to disqualify him for having lied on election paperwork about where he lived. Kennedy said he did want to remain on a number of blue state ballots. Kennedy, however, wants his name off ballots in battleground states Michigan and Wisconsin. Those states, each citing a different state law, have refused his request, so his name will remain on the November ballot in states that would be key to a Donald Trump victory. I'm Jeff McKay in Washington.
Next, Jewish students attacked on a Pittsburgh college campus, and crypto firms throw their support behind this presidential candidate when America in the Morning returns after these messages. Welcome back to America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. The FBI is now investigating after two Jewish students were attacked on the campus of the University of Pittsburgh, outside the school's largest landmark, the Cathedral of Learning. A 52-year-old man arrested, facing possible hate crime charges. Correspondent Julie Walker reports many are concerned there was no notice from the school's emergency notification system. Audio courtesy of CBS TV affiliate KDKA.
Our roommates got word from group chats and class group chats and group me's, and we all were just kind of trying to get as much information as soon as possible, as fast as possible.
Anti-Semitism, and I says no place here, especially at Pitt.
When we don't get an official notification from the school, there's a lot of rumors going around.
The school says the suspect used a bottle in the attack, and two of the students were treated at the scene for injuries. It took place near Pitt's Cathedral of Learning. The school says campus police made the arrest immediately, and the suspect has no known Pitt affiliation. In a statement, university leaders say, to be clear, neither acts of violence nor anti-Semitism will be tolerated, and they were in contact with the Hillel University Center as well as the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh. I'm Julie Walker.
A botched college aid process has some students wondering what might have been as they find themselves in application limbo. Correspondent Jennifer King explains.
How would you like to have to pick a college with little to no information about how much financial aid you'd be offered? That's what happened to many in the high school class of 2024. Last year's redesign of the government's free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA, resulted in technical glitches that delayed the results. An analysis by the Century Foundation found that year over year there was a 20% drop-off in FAFSA completions coming from historically marginalized communities. Rather than rolling the dice, counselors say some students deferred to spring enrollment, opted to attend two-year colleges, or got stuck with more expensive housing because they were waiting for news about financial aid. Others, like a Joby Gola from the Chicago area, went with the school that offered the most merit scholarship money rather than their top choice. Golo says she loves her new school, DePaul University, but felt backed into a corner at decision time. DePaul has allowed her to defer payments, and she's still waiting as the Department of Education wades through a backlog of paper filings. Jennifer King, Washington.
3 people confirmed dead after a small plane crashes into a row of townhouses and sparks a massive fire in Fairview, Oregon. Nearby Gresham's Fire Chief Scott Lewis confirmed the plane's pilot, a passenger, and someone who lived in one of the townhomes were killed in the crash. The plane first hit a utility tower, causing that structure to fall into a field, which started a small brush fire. The aircraft then spiraled into the townhouses. The FAA and the National Transportation Safety Board are investigating. America in the Morning continues. A new report finds a processing plant linked to a deadly outbreak broke food safety rules dozens of times. Correspondent Norman Hall files this report.
The violations included instances of mold, insects, liquid dripping from ceilings, and meat and fat residue on walls, floors, and equipment. Agriculture Department officials logged 69 instances of non-compliance with federal rules in the past year at the Boar's Head plant. It's been linked to listeria deaths of at least 9 people and hospitalizations of about 50 others in 18 states. One food safety expert says the reports raised red flags about company officials and regulators. I'm Norman Hall.
It's not uncommon for the financial sector to host political fundraisers for one side or the other, but big crypto firms seem to be favoring Kamala Harris, trying to raise funds to sway policy should their side win the bid for the White House. With more on the story, America in the Morning's tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
It seems that crypto is going political. Crypto industry executives are holding a Democratic rally for Vice President Kamala Harris in hopes of raising at least $100,000 in order to persuade her to have a softer regulatory stance if she's elected president. Clave Meisdor, the executive director of the Blockchain Foundation, has said that tickets for the fundraiser range from $500 to $5,000. According to a report from Reuters, the organizers include Tiffany Smith, the co-chair of the Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Working Group, and they are hoping that if elected, Harris will ease up on crypto after the Securities and Exchange Commission under Biden has cracked down on the sector. The FCC has accused big crypto firms of flouting security laws, although the industry disputes that those laws will even apply to them. In contrast, former President Trump has been courting big crypto donors with promises of a more crypto-friendly administration. Bitcoin trading currently down at 58,000 and Ethereum at 2,480. Chime in at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
And with that, we're up to sports. Here's Robert Workman.
Baseball Sunday, the Diamondbacks scored 8 times in the second inning and cruised to a 14-3 romp over the Dodgers. Randall Grichuk capped the Snowman with a 3-run homer. The Cardinals crushed the Yankees 14-7. Lars Nootbaar drove in 5 runs.
Against the Yankees, at their park, it's a big one. So we're glad to have that, especially after dropping the first one, coming back strong with those 2 wins there.
Jordan Walker had 5 of the Redbirds' 21 hits. Orioles whacked the Rockies. Zach Eflin came back from the injured list to fire 7 sparkling innings, the first 5 of which were perfect in Denver. Guardians buried the Pirates. Astros completed a 4-game sweep of the Royals. Yordan Alvarez went deep twice to give him 30 for the 4th straight year. Phillies nipped the Braves in 11 innings last night. Nick Castellanos with the walk-off RBI hit. Red shaded the Brewers in 11. Rangers flipped the A's on Josh Young's game-ending 3-run blast in the 10th. Twins clipped the Blue Jays on Royce Lewis's go-ahead 3-run dinger in the 8th. Mets blanked the White Sox. Sean Manaea and company with a 2-hit gem. Wins for the Padres, Tigers, Marlins, Angels, and Cubs. At the U.S. Open, defending champion and 3-seed Coco Gauff lost to fellow American number 13 Emma Navarro in the 4th round. 6-seed Jessica Pegula plays today. On the men's side, Americans Taylor Fritz, the 12-seed, and number 20 Francis Tiafoe advanced to the quarterfinals. Number 14 Tommy Paul hopes to join them tonight, but he'll have to beat top seed Jannik Sinner in order to do that. Scotty Scheffler led wire-to-wire at the Tour Championship to win the FedEx Cup playoffs and the $25 million prize. Chase Briscoe won the final NASCAR regular season race last night at Darlington. He, Ty Gibbs, and Martin Truex Jr. make the playoffs, which begin next Sunday in Atlanta. College football, number 23 USC got a touchdown with 8 seconds left to upset number 13 LSU in Las Vegas. That's Monday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. Among the stories we're covering next, dam removed, river flows free again, when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. A slow Labor Day weekend at theaters. Kevin Carr has details.
Labor Day weekend rarely lights the box office on fire, and this year is no exception. Only one of the new releases broke into the top 5, finishing off the robust summer at the movies.
Let's give the people what they came for.
Deadpool and Wolverine remained at number 1 with $15 million.
You really are God's perfect idiot, aren't you?
The answer is yes.
That's enough for the superhero juggernaut to squeak past $600 million stateside and help propel the overall summer box office to $3.6 billion.
Open the door, come on.
Run.
At number 2 was Alien Romulus with $9 million, pushing its total within $10 million of the century mark and encroaching on $300 million worldwide.
As hard as this choice is, we break the pattern.
It Ends With Us managed to stay at number 3 with $7.4 million, which was an impressive hold.
Hello, I'm Nancy Davis.
Hello, Nancy Davis. I'm Ron Reagan.
Newcomer Reagan, starring Dennis Quaid as the popular president, hit 4th place with a better-than-expected $7.4 million.
There's nothing a retired governor can do about the Soviets, but a president. Now he can do a thing or two.
The presidential biopic pushed the midsummer phenom Twisters into 5th place with $7.1 million.
Are those fireworks?
Yes, ma'am.
The other wide newcomer, Afraid, landed with a thud in 9th place, while a selection of smaller releases like 1992, City of Dreams, and Slingshot all fizzled well outside of the top 10. I'm Kevin Carr.
A key section of the Klamath River in California is flowing free again, following an historic dam removal project, just in time for salmon spawning season. Correspondent Ben Thomas reports.
Near the California-Oregon border this week, workers using excavators breached the final dams on a key section of the Klamath River, clearing the way for salmon to swim freely upstream for the first time in more than a century.
These dams were built to produce hydroelectric power. They don't store water for municipal or agricultural uses, and they're not operated to provide any flood control benefits.
Mark Branson.
The electric company that previously owned the dams made a decision that they did not want to continue to operate them.
So they were transferred to Branson's Klamath River Renewal Corporation and removed.
Some of our people say we're here because those fish were here. You know, it helped us survive the ages.
But Don Gentry with the Klamath Tribes says the salmon's return won't be automatic.
To restore the salmon, it may take really concentrated efforts, some hatchery supplementation before they finally can maintain their own population spawning naturally and reach harvestable levels.
Still, the passage is now clear, and there have already been reports of salmon starting their journey. I'm Ben Thomas.
America in the Morning for Monday, August 2nd, 2024. Labor Day is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.